We have misunderstood A Christmas Carol for 180 years. We all think A Christmas Carol is a story about kindness, about redemption, about becoming a better person. But in reality, it's a story about hard economics. So in A Christmas Carol, Dickens wasn't just telling a moral story. He was diagnosing a broken economic mindset. Because Christmas Carol is probably the earliest story about how wealth changes the way people think and see the world, and how it keeps them insulated from the consequences of the way they live. Because Scrooge isn't cruel because he hates people, he's cruel because he thinks he doesn't need them. He lives alone, he works alone, he keeps everything locked away. He mistakes insulation for strength.
A few of us are endeavouring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth.
Why?
Because it is at Christmas time that want is most keenly felt.
It is enough for a man to understand his own business without interfering with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
That belief, I stand alone, therefore others should too, is the psychological engine of Scrooge's whole character, and modern psychology has a name for that: self-sufficiency bias, which is the more independent people feel, the less they notice other humans.
I can't pay you, sir.
I'm not surprised.
Not unless you give me more time.
Did I ask you for more time to lend you the money?
Oh, no, sir.
Then why should you ask me for more time to pay it back?
I can't take my wife to a debtor's prison.
Then leave her behind. Why should she go to a debtor's prison anyway? She didn't borrow the £20, you did. Huh. What has your wife got to do with it? For that matter, what have I got to do with it? Good afternoon.
But Mr. Scrooge, it's Christmas.
Christmas has even less to do with it, my dear sir, than your wife has or I have. You'd still owe me £20 and you're not in a position to repay if it was the middle of a heat wave and August bank holiday. Good afternoon.
In studies by Michael Krauss, Paul Piff and Dacia Keltner, people were shown faces showing subtle emotions: embarrassment, fear, concern. And they were asked to identify what that person was feeling. Consistently, people from lower social classes were better at reading emotions, while higher status participants were worse. Now, that's not because they were nastier, but it's because independence trains your attention away from other people. Because your survival doesn't feel like it relies on other people. Although in reality, obviously, we are all interdependent. And that's not because they're worse people, it's because wealth hides dependency. Scrooge genuinely believes that he is self-made. Millionaires and billionaires genuinely believe they are self-made. But crucially, in the experiment, that characteristic, it wasn't fixed. Because when higher status participants were reminded of moments where they depended on people, depended on others, their empathy returned like that. They could read faces better, which is exactly why the ghosts, they don't argue with Scrooge. They run the experiment. They force Scrooge to witness dependency, vulnerability, and they remind Scrooge who he used to be, who he is.
Yeah. I have forgotten how beautiful she was.
Hello, ma'am. Hello. Would you like to dance? Yes.
How he depends on others, how he needs others. Because empathy isn't something the rich lose, it's something they feel they stop needing. And like any other unused muscle, it quietly atrophies. The ghost shows Scrooge that dependency is not weakness, it's the starting and basic condition of every human life. And so the myth of total self-reliance collapses when faced with the basic facts of life. And it's not just that. Scrooge is cruel because he blames people for their own poverty.
I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population.
But again, this isn't cruelty. It is faulty economics, created by something called just world bias, which is where, when people see suffering they can't fix, something really strange happens. They don't question the system, they explain it. That's just world bias, the belief that people end up where they deserve to be. So, a psychologist, Melvin Lerner, proved this in the 1960s and proved it clearly. He showed people an innocent person receiving painful electric shocks. Yeah, right. But when observers felt that they could intervene and stop the shocks happening to this innocent person, they felt outraged. They were angry. But when they were told they couldn't intervene and had to sit powerless and watch this innocent person get hurt, something chilling happened. They began to believe that the victim must deserve it, not because they were cruel, but because it's more comforting, reassuring to think a victim deserves it than to think the world is chaotic and unfair. Dickens understood that instinctively. So the Ghost of Christmas Present, it basically does something precise. He removes that distance, that comfort. He forces Scrooge to meet the Cratchits.
A Merry Christmas to us all.
A Merry Christmas to us all.
And God bless us, everyone.
He forces Scrooge to meet the Cratchits, who are working hard, loving, trying their best, and yet still hugely suffering. Suffering they don't deserve. The Cratchits, if anything, are the proof that Scrooge needs, that virtue, it just doesn't guarantee reward. There is no fairness in this life. They are living proof that virtue does not guarantee reward. And that's the moment that the privileged Scrooge is forced to face the world as it is.
No, say you will be spared.
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my species will find him here. But if he is to die, then let him die, and decrease the surplus population.
A cruel, unfair world that does not reward goodness, but rewards wealth and power. So, the interesting thing is that by the end of the second Ghost, Scrooge is a wreck. He's learned his lesson. But the hard economics truths of his life choices, they have to be shown through. So enter the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come? Spirit, I fear you more than any spectre I have yet met.
That forces Scrooge to face the consequence of his life and his choices, where his refusal to accept his reliance on other human beings, it has an effect, where his biases have an effect. A future where his emotional distance directly results in the deaths of innocent children. The Ghost of Christmas Future, it sees the world if nobody does anything, the hard consequences of inaction and of hoarded wealth. And in that future, Tiny Tim will die. Because Tiny Tim, he doesn't die because he deserves it. He dies because the system doesn't invest in him. Dickens wrote this story 180 years ago when there were horses and carts in the street. And depressingly, it was relevant and true then. It's true also in the UK today, where the richest 1% of Britons, incredibly, hold more wealth than the bottom 43% of the country. Like what? And public health research is totally clear about this, that where wealth is concentrated, investments in health, housing and children falls dramatically. So when vast fortunes are hoarded, wealth that could never be spent in 100 or even 1,000 lifetimes, it has consequences. Tiny Tim or any child today, they don't die because they deserve it. They die because the system and people don't invest in them. Because the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, he's not showing what might happen, he's showing what will happen. He isn't a warning, he's a projection, whereas Dickens called it a ghost. Today, we call it hard economic data. Scrooge doesn't change because he becomes nicer. He changes because the stories protecting his wealth mindset collapse. and he sees the direct consequences of his actions and lifestyle.
Do we have enough wood for the night?
Oh, it'll last through. At least there's one thing still free in this country.
Why are these people out here? Men and women in rags, children eating scraps. They're institutions.
Have you visited any of them, these institutions you speak of?
No, I'm taxed for them. Isn't that enough?
Is it?
The ghosts don't teach him empathy. They systematically dismantle the biases that once protected his wealthy worldview. Biases that once made inequality feel logical, inevitable, natural, just one of those things. And they do that by running through a complete cognitive bias demolition program. If this was a psychology experiment, it'd be a 3-ghost randomized controlled trial for rich people. And the result? Redistribution. He pays properly, he circulates wealth, he helps families, he invests in communities. The ghosts don't teach him to feel. They teach him how economies need to work. And because societies don't fail because people are heartless, they fail because powerful people stop seeing the effects of their actions, of their lifestyle. Like right now, with child poverty on the rise in the UK and people starving around the world, we don't live in an age of scarcity. But we do live in an age of stockpiled abundance. And until we challenge the stories that wealth tells itself to make itself feel better about itself, the ghosts won't need to come because the future arrives anyway. Merry Christmas, everyone.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.